Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement seminar. So in this seminar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know about the 3 years leading up to retirement, or maybe even the 3 months or 3 weeks leading up to retirement, because you're going to retire soon. And you probably have some questions like, what do I need to know? And what do I need to do? So I have arranged the answers to those questions and this presentation in the form of a checklist. So this is the checklist that we're going to go through. I'm going to help you understand your membership, and we're going to talk about your retirement contributions and some other kind of nuts and bolts of the pension, of your pension and how it works. I'm going to help you estimate your retirement benefit, and we'll talk about the retirement formula, um, purchasing service credit, how vacation affects your salary, and I'll show you how the benefit estimator tool works. I'm going to help you verify your retirement eligibility. I'm also going to help you choose your retirement date. I'm going to tell you about the process by which you apply to retire. And we'll talk about the 5 different retirement allowance options that come with different sets of benefits. I'm going to talk about your other benefits that you may be eligible for in retirement, such as medical, dental, vision. And then we'll talk briefly about understanding some other life events and signing up for Acera News. Let's jump right in. I will monitor the Q&A as we go along. All right, so let's talk about understanding your membership. So who is Acera? In one sense, Acera is this acronym, the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But really, Acera is made up of a lot of people. So what we do at Acera, those of us that work here, there's about 90 of us, we provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to all of our members, all the members of Acera. That's you. You are a member of Acera. Because of the position that you work in and who you work for. You work, or at some point you worked full-time in a retirement eligible position for one of these 6 participating employers, including Alameda County, which is our biggest participating employer. So because you work in that position, you are automatically an Acera member. And as an Acera member, you pay into Acera's fund with every paycheck. If you look at your paycheck, you'll see a percentage of your paycheck come out with every paycheck and go into Acera's fund. Your employer is also contributing to Acera's fund on your behalf. And so we have this money and we need to park it somewhere. So what we do is we invest it all over the world and we earn a lot of interest on those investments. And that is another source of income for Acera's fund. So we have you contributing, your employer contributing, and us earning percentages, increases on those investments. And that gives us this big pot of money that we call Acera's fund. So then what do we do with that money? Well, meanwhile, for some reason, the pictures dropped out of this. I don't know why that happened. So imagine this is a picture of a person hard at work at a computer. And that is you earning credit toward retirement while you work. Okay, so as you work, you earn credit toward retirement. And then imagine right here, there's a picture of a gentleman drinking a umbrella drink on the beach. That's you in retirement. Once you retire, you collect a monthly retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. You're going to get that every month for the rest of your life. So that's how Acera works. It's a secure retirement that you can count on, that you have earned. So let's hope none of the other images have dropped out of the presentation mysteriously. So let me show you these milestones. These are the milestones that you will see along your career and along your membership with Acera. The first milestone is your date of hire. That is, if you started out in your first full-time retirement eligible position, that is the day that they told you to show up to work. If you started out in some other position, like part-time or working under contract or seasonally, Once you got that full-time retirement eligible position, this date of hire is considered the first day of that retirement, your full-time retirement eligible position. Next milestone is your date of entry into ACERA. This is your first day of ACERA membership. This is when you start earning credit toward retirement. And it's usually the first day of the second pay period with ACERA. 5 years goes by. After 5 years, you are considered vested in the retirement system. Now, vested, you've probably heard this word. It just means guaranteed. So once you have 5 years of service credit and you're vested in the system, you're guaranteed the vested benefits. You're basically guaranteed the guaranteed benefits. And I'll show you what those are in just a minute. After you become vested, there's some other point where you become eligible to retire. And it's usually based on your years of service credit and or your age. And there's different combinations that get you to retirement eligibility, which is one of the stops on our checklist. So I'll show that to you a little bit later in the presentation. But that's the first day that you are physically eligible to retire. You can retire on that day if you want, or you can keep earning more retirement. So at some point in the future, there's going to be a date that you choose that is your retirement date. This is your first day of retirement, and this is when you stop working. Actually, you stopped working the day before this, usually. And then your first day of retirement, this is the day that you begin collecting your retirement benefits that you've earned. And you're going to collect those for the rest of your life, all the way up until your death. And then there's another milestone besides your death, which is some of the options that you will select from when you retire. The retirement allowance options also allow for a continuing payment to a beneficiary after your death, usually for the rest of their life. And so I put that milestone on the chart. When your beneficiary dies, that's when their continuing monthly payments would stop. So those are the pension milestones that you will see during your career and your membership with ACERA. Okay, at this point, I'm going to show you this. This is a piece of the worksheet that I asked you to download. So let me switch my screen share real fast, and I'll show you where to get that worksheet. Okay, here's our website, and you simply go out to news and events, and you go down to retirement seminars where you found this seminar, and that is going to be right here under the pre-retirement seminar. So you can fill this out as we go along if you like. I created this to be your takeaway from this seminar, because there's a lot of information in here. There's about 3 hours worth of information. And what I found is that some of it is more memorable than others. And so I designed this so that as you learn some of the numbers that pertain to your situation and your career and your retirement, you can fill those in. And then later when you come back and you kind of are trying to remember what you learned in the seminar, you can review the worksheet and you can see all of the dates and numbers that you recorded. So we're going to start out with this box, the career timeline first. And let me make a recommendation. We just recently changed this to a fillable form, but what you don't want to do is fill it out in your browser. Okay, if you're in Chrome, what you're going to do is click the download button and go ahead and download that to your device, and then find it in your device, open it up, and then fill it out there. Because if you fill it out in your browser and try to save it, none of the numbers are going to save. Okay. Alternatively, you can just simply print this out and fill it out with a pen or pencil. Okay. Going back to the presentation. So looking at just this career timeline box for the moment, starting off with that. Now that you know what your ACERA entry date is, which is the first day, the first day of your second full-time pay period in your retirement eligible position, you can fill that in here. Or if you don't happen to remember what it is, I don't happen to remember what mine is, you can fill out an approximate date. So for any of these, you can fill out approximate dates. And if you just happen to remember it's like November of 2004, then you can just put that in. Or if you just remember the year, go ahead and put that in. And then at this point, if you want to, if you already have an idea of your projected retirement date, you can go ahead and fill that in. But you may want to fill it in pencil because you might hear something during the presentation that might shift that around a little bit. So really quickly about vesting. Like I said, it happens after 5 years of service credit. And when I say it's guaranteed, the benefits are guaranteed, and vesting means guaranteed. They're guaranteed by state law. And what the vested benefits are that retirement allowance that we've been talking about, the monthly retirement allowance that you're going to get every month for the rest of your life, an annual cost of living adjustment, which is an increase annually to that retirement allowance. And then there's this $1,000 lump sum death benefit, which is in addition to some of the other death benefits that are going to be available based on the retirement option that you select, which we'll talk about. So now that you know what your vesting date is, which is if you started your job and you worked 5 full-time years, it would simply be 5 years from this date. The vesting date isn't super important because the vast majority of people work many years past their vesting date, so you can just kind of get approximate here if you like. I need to tell you about the tier that you're in, and this will help you understand a lot of the different topics that we talk about in the presentation. You all are in one of these tiers, and it's based on your date of entry with ACERA. So that, again, is your first day of ACERA membership. Now, the way that these timelines work is if you entered ACERA before the date that is underneath the dot, then that puts you in the tier over here. So for example, if you're a general member and you start and you entered ACERA before January 1st, 1983, that would put you in tier 1. Now, safety members are sheriff's deputies and probation officers and other sworn officers. If you're not a safety member, you're a general member, okay? And then we've broken out a couple of other general member groups here because they actually have a different timelines. If you work for Alameda County Housing Authority or Livermore Area Recreation Parks District, you have a different timeline. So everyone else looks at the general member timeline. Okay, and then you think about your date of entry and you figure out where on the timeline you entered ACERA, and that is how you know what tier you're in. So if you entered ACERA July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that puts you in tier 2 as a general member. If you entered ACERA January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that puts you in tier 4. And that is true with all of the tiers. Tier 4 started on January 1st, 2013. If you are entering ACERA with reciprocity, which means you are linking a different retirement system with ACERA, and you started in that retirement system in an earlier date, that would put you in an earlier tier, then you would enter in that earlier tier. If you want more information about that, you can check out our tier page on our website. I think it's acera.org/tier. One more thing I'll point out on this page is that for the safety members, if you entered October 17th, 2010, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, you had to make a selection between whether you wanted to be in tier 2C or tier 2D. And you had like 45 days after your entry into that safety membership to make that selection. And if you didn't make a selection, then you were defaulted into the lower tier. For everyone, if you don't want to go by the chart and you just want to go by, what we have in our database, all you need to do is simply log into your account on our website, and then you can see what tier you're in. So now that you know what tier you're in, you can go ahead and mark that on your worksheet. If you're a safety member, you may actually have some time as a general member, and so you kind of have a split tier. You have some service credit in the general tier and some in a safety tier. So you can mark both of those on your worksheet, or you can do 2 separate worksheets if you like. Next item on the checklist is estimating your benefit. So let me help you understand how we calculate your retirement allowance. And that'll help you understand a lot about how a SARA works and what your benefit is going to be in retirement. So in retirement, you're going to get a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service, basically each year that you work. So you're going to get a percentage, a certain percentage of what your highest salary is for each year of service. And that is illustrated in the pension formula that we're going to calculate for you. So let me do an example. Let's say that the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get is going to be 2%. And let's say that you work for 20 years. So you are going to get 2% of your highest salary for each one of those 20 years of service. That means that you're going to get 40% of your highest salary because 2% times 20 is 40. That gives you 40%. And then let's say that your highest salary is $5,000, for example. Well, 40% of $5,000 is $2,000. So that becomes your retirement allowance. That just kind of gives you a basic idea of how the pension formula works. Let me talk about each one of those three factors in a little more detail. The first one I'll talk about is the age factor percentage, which is in the example that I gave you, the 2%. So it's not going to be 2% for you in most cases. It's going to be a different percentage based on how old you are when you retire. So let me show you how to get an idea of what the percentage is going to be for you. First of all, this is an example age factor percentage chart. And to find yourself on the chart, you simply find your tier. So whether you're general or safety, you narrow it down to your tier. So if you're a general tier 2 member, you just look at this set of numbers and forget about all the other numbers. Okay, now the way this works is if you are going to retire at age 60, for example, and you're a general tier 2 member, when you go to retire, we're going to calculate that pension formula for you. So we're going to need one of these percentages. So we come down over here and we say you're retiring at age 60. We come over here to general tier 2 and we see that it's 1.92%. And the 1.92% is what we put in the formula for you and multiply it by your years of service. And that tells us what percentage of your salary that you're going to get. So you'll notice that the percentages get larger the older you are when you retire. So the longer you wait to retire, the older you are, the higher the percentage of your salary you're going to get for each year of service is going to be, up to a maximum, which is illustrated by the blue box in each one of the tiers. If you retire at that age or above that age, you get the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. Another thing that you'll probably notice is that I skipped a bunch of ages here. And that is because there's too many age factor percentages and too many age increments to fit on the slide because the percentages increase with every 3 months that you don't retire. And it's based on your birthday. So let's say, for example, that your birthday is January 15th. Well, 3 months after your birthday is April 15th. If you pass that date, you go up one notch in the age factor chart. 3 months after that is July 15th. If you don't retire yet, you pass that date, you go up another notch in the age factor chart. And every time you go up, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. So there are a bunch of increments in between all of these percentages. And so every time you pass one of those 3-month increment days, you go up a notch in the chart based on your birthday. If you want to see the full age factor chart, you can search for age factors on our website, or you can go to this URL right here. Any more questions on the age factor percentages before I move on? Or any questions to start off with? Okay, we'll talk about service credit next. So we talked about the age factor percentage. We'll move on to service credit. You begin earning service credit when you enter a SARA. On your first day of membership, you start earning service credit. And you're going to earn service credit all the way up until you retire if you go straight from work into retirement. If you stop work and don't retire yet, you defer your retirement to a later date, which we call you becoming a deferred member, then there would be an additional milestone here that would say termination date. And so you would earn your service credit during your active membership, basically while you're working, all the way up to your termination date. You earn service credit while you work. You also earn service credit while you're out on vacation leave, sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays. All those types of leave do not count against you. You're already earning service credit while you're out on those leaves. And this is earned vacation. Now, you don't earn service credit when you're out on leave without pay. You're not earning service credit. Also, if you purchase additional vacation on top of your earned vacation, while you're out on that purchased vacation, if you mark purchase vacation on your timesheet, you're not earning service credit during that time. Also, if you sell your vacation, which means that you're not going to take your earned vacation, you're going to instead sell it back to your employer for cash, you're not going to earn service credit for it. But if that vacation sale comes at a certain time, then you may get salary credit for it in the formula, which we'll go into in depth when I talk about the salary component of the formula. You also do not earn service credit during overtime, on-call time, and standby time. There is an ability to purchase additional service credit, which will increase your service credit number in the formula, which increases your retirement allowance because it's one of the multipliers in the formula. Some examples of types of service credit that you can buy are listed out here. And it's basically times that if circumstances were maybe slightly different, you could have earned service credit, but you were unable to. And so then you're allowed to go back and buy that time. Sort of. That's kind of conceptually how it works. So those examples include part-time work that you did before you got your full-time job. If it was plain old part-time work and it wasn't under contract or for a temporary agency, that's purchasable. Time that you worked in the county's temporary assignment pool is purchasable. Project work that you did before your full-time retirement eligible position is purchasable, and so on and so forth. The days between your date of entry and your retirement date, the days between your date of hire and your date of entry, that 2 weeks, that's purchasable. Any unpaid leave that is in the categories of medical, disability, and military leave is purchasable. Redeposit of prior memberships, if you used to be an ACERA member in the past and you took a refund when you left your membership here, and then you come back and you want to get that service credit back, you can redeposit that money that you had taken a refund of and get your service credit back. And then if you used to work for another public agency in California, and you're not eligible for their pension, usually because either you didn't work there for very long or you took a refund of your contributions to their pension, you can buy that time as a ACERA service credit. I don't have time to take a deep dive into purchasing service credit during the pre-retirement seminar, but if you want to get more information about that, you can check out our webpage on purchasing service credit. And I do take a deep dive into it during our new employee / mid-career seminar, which we have recordings of on our website. And you can also sign up for one of those seminars to attend it live. One more thing that I want to say about service credit is that is under the topic of what happens to your unused sick leave. So when you go to retire, you're probably going to have some leave balances left over. You might have vacation leave left over, which we'll talk about in a minute, but you might also have sick leave left over. People often do. What happens to it? Well, if you, if you go straight from active work into retirement, which means that your last day of work is the day before your first day of retirement. And when I say last day of work, I mean last day on payroll, basically. Is the day before your first day of retirement. That means there's no gap in here. You spend no time as a deferred member. You go straight from active work into retirement. We will convert your sick leave to service credit on a 2-to-1 basis. So we'll basically take the sick leave that you have left on the books and divide it by 2, and that becomes additional service credit that we add to that service credit number in the formula for you. Now there's a cap on it in most cases, and the cap is you can find it in your memorandum of understanding, which is your MOU. If you've never read your MOU, you can get it from your Human Resources Department. And I think they might also all be posted on the county's website if you're a county employee. The cap for a lot of the MOUs is 125 days of sick leave. So I'll give you that example of how it works if the cap is 125 days of sick leave. So let's say that you have 130 days of sick leave that you haven't taken. Well, we can only convert up to 125 days, so that extra 5 days disappears. Then we take the 125 days that you have on the books, we divide it by 2, and that becomes 62 and a half days of service credit. Now, these are work days, these aren't calendar days. And so 62 and a half days is about 12, a little over 12 work weeks. So it's about 3 months more of additional service credit that you would get. There is one bargaining unit that I know what the cap is, which is ACMEA, and there is no cap. And then the unrepresented managers who go along with ACMEA, there's no cap. Otherwise, you need to check your MOU for the cap because I don't know any of them off the top of my head. So that's what happens to your unused sick leave. It increases your amount of service credit in the formula. So we've talked about the age factor percentage, and we've talked about the service credit component of the formula. Let's talk about the salary component. When you go to retire, because one of the factors in the formula is your highest average monthly salary, we're going to need to calculate that. What we do is we look at your salary in this period that we call your final compensation period. It's your period of highest pay in your career. For tiers 1 and 3, your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods, depending on how you're paid. For tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods, whether you're paid biweekly or monthly. So essentially, for tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay, and for tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 3 years of pay. What we do to calculate your highest average monthly salary is we look at your total pay during your final compensation period. We have all your payroll records on file in our database because your employer has transmitted them to us so that we can do this calculation. We take your total pay during your final compensation period, and to get the average, we simply divide it by the number of months in that final compensation period. So for tiers 1 and 3, we would divide it by 12 months to get the average. And for tiers 2 and 4, we divide it by 36 months to get the average. And one more thing I'll say about this is that these are your highest consecutive full-time pay periods or full-time equivalent pay periods. So if you work less than full-time during the time period in your career where you're making your highest rate of pay, that we would, if you were working for full-time, we would normally calculate as your final compensation period, we're still going to make that your final compensation period. What we're going to do is we're going to find additional part-time pay periods to add on to those part-time pay periods to get you up to the equivalent of 3 full years of full-time pay periods. So for example, if your last 6 years, let's say you're in tier 2 or tier 4, your last 6 years of your career, you're making your highest rate of pay in your career, but you're working half-time. So what we'll do is, because we're looking for 3 full-time equivalent years of your highest pay, we'll take all of those 6 years of half-time pay and we'll smash those pay periods together to get the equivalent of 3 full-time years of pay. So working less than full-time doesn't count against you regarding how we calculate your salary. It does mean that in the service credit component of the formula, you're earning service credit more slowly because you're working less hours, but it doesn't count against you in terms of your salary. Okay, what types of pay are included in your salary? Because you probably want to know. You see your paycheck, maybe you have different types of pay. Which types are included? Well, of course, your base pay is included. And for all of these types, we're talking about gross pay. We calculate this before any deductions have been taken out. So your base pay is included. And then for some people, you may have other pay codes in there, sometimes known as footnotes. These are often based on skills and education. If you have other pay codes, in order to determine whether these are included, because there's like 1,000 of them, I don't know them off the top of my head, you can go to this page on our site, sarah.org/paycodes, and there is a PDF for your employer. You open that up, and there's a list of all the pay codes. They're listed by number and by name, and it'll say yes or no whether it is in or out of this calculation. But I can tell you that overtime never counts. That is one pay code that I happen to know. Okay, so now we're on to the topic of how getting paid for vacation during your final compensation period figures in to the calculation of your retirement allowance. So there's two ways. Actually, let me go to the next slide. For Tier 4 members, you can't do this. So you can take a break. Whenever the state created Tier 4 back in 2012, and it started on January 1st, 2013, they got rid of this whole thing for Tier 4 members. So this will be like 10 minutes that we'll talk about this. So yeah, you can take a break. So the idea here is that you have this vacation that you're earning. It's one of your benefits. And there are two ways where you don't take your earned vacation. It's like you don't go out on vacation, and instead your employer will pay you for it. The first way is that you sell your vacation back to your employer while you're still employed. So let's say that you have 10 weeks of vacation on the books and you want to sell 2 of those weeks. There's some process that your employer has where you can sell your vacation back to them, and they'll write you a check for 2 weeks worth of additional pay. And then your vacation on the books goes down by 2 weeks. So that's selling vacation back to your employer. The second way that you can get compensated for your vacation is simply that you have not taken vacation yet. You have it still left over on the books when you stop working and or retire. The vacation that you have left over on the books that you haven't taken yet, they will compensate you for at that point. And so if that happens and your final compensation period is at the end of your career, then this called vacation cash out, that way of getting paid for your vacation, would be included in here. So what we're doing is considering, when we're calculating your retirement, if you were compensated for your vacation, your earned vacation during your final compensation period, through a combination of selling your vacation while you're still employed and cashing it out and or cashing it out at retirement. So we're adding these two up, and then we're looking at the total amount of vacation that you were compensated for during your final compensation period. Now, what the law tells us that we must do is, if you are compensated for your vacation during this final compensation period, we must include it up to a limit, which I'll talk about in a minute, in your salary for the purposes of calculating your pension. So we have to do it. And so the reason I have a bunch of slides on this and I'm explaining it in detail is because the law tells us we must do it. And so we get a lot of questions about how it works and what the limitations are, because people want to know how their benefit is calculated. And so we figure I might as well explain to you the nuts and bolts of how it works. Okay. So the idea here is that if you are paid for vacation, if you're compensated for your earned vacation during that final compensation period, either through selling vacation or cashing out vacation, that means that the total salary that you have made during that final compensation period, that goes up. It also means that because your total salary during that final compensation period goes up, your average salary over that final compensation period also increases. Because your average salary is one of the 3 factors in the retirement formula, one of the 3 multipliers. That means that the larger any of those 3 numbers are, the larger your retirement allowance is going to be. So the bottom line is that if you're compensated for your earned vacation during your final compensation period, your retirement allowance increases. And so because I'm telling you the nuts and bolts of it, I might as well tell you the effect that it has on your retirement allowance. And I do have a question. Are there limits on vacation cash out? What are those limits? And that is going to be on the very next slide. So I will answer that question in just a second. Okay, here's the effect of getting compensated for your vacation. Here's the effect that it has on your monthly retirement allowance. Let's say, for example, that you are compensated for 8 weeks of vacation, of your earned vacation, that you haven't taken during that final compensation period. That will increase your retirement allowance by about 5%. These are all approximate numbers, but it'll increase your retirement allowance by about 5% at the time of retirement and for the rest of your life. So that's why this topic is interesting to people, because it does have a bit of an effect on your retirement allowance. And so this chart kind of gives you an idea of what that effect is based on your tier and based on how many weeks of vacation compensation that we include in your salary calculation. Now, to your question, there is a cap on how much vacation compensation a SARA must include. And that cap is defined by the law also. So this law says that it's one of your benefits that we must include, but we also must cap it at a certain level. So I will help you find what the cap is for you. And this is going to be, so your question was, are there limits on vacation cash out? This is sort of one of those limits, but there's another limit, which I'll get to in just a minute. Okay. So to help you figure this out, I found that the easiest way is to do this on the worksheet. So this is one section of your worksheet, which is calculating your vacation compensation limit. The first subsection that I'm going to do is for Alameda Health System employees, one of our 6 participating employers, and then I'll do everyone else. So for Alameda Health System employees, what you do is in this field, you put in how many hours of PTO you earn per pay period. So for Alameda Health System employees, your vacation and sick leave is kind of all in one bucket, paid time off. And so you earn a certain rate per pay period, a certain number of hours per pay period. You put that number of hours in this field. Okay, then to calculate your limit for tier 1 members, you simply multiply that number by 26, and that's your limit in hours. For tier 2, you multiply your limit by 52, and that is your limit in hours. You're basically multiplying how much vacation you make per pay period by a year's worth of pay for tier 1 and 2 years worth of pay for tier 2. Or 2 years worth of time, 2 years worth of pay periods. And so that's your limit. Okay, now I'll do everyone else. So for Alameda County and the other employers. The way you're going to find your limit is using these 2 numbers, earned and payable. Okay, earned is how many weeks of vacation that you earn per year at retirement, that you're earning per year at retirement. So you're earning a certain rate of vacation. If you've worked for, what is it, 10 years? If you worked for 5 years, you're earning 3 weeks of vacation per year. Maybe 10 years, you're earning 4 weeks of vacation per year. It's based on longevity, but you're earning a certain number of weeks per year. So whatever that number of weeks is going to be for you at the time of retirement, you put that in here. So let's say at the time of retirement, you're earning 5 weeks of vacation per year. You go ahead and put that in here. Okay, the second number that we have to go by is called payable. It's the payable number. How many weeks of vacation are you allowed to sell per year? This is somewhere in your employer's rules or rule book or guidelines. They will only let you sell a certain number of weeks of vacation per year. Let's say that it's 2, because for a lot of people, it's only 2. So in this example, you're earning 5 per year. And if you want to, your employer will let you sell 2 of those 5 while you're still working. Okay, so these are the two numbers that we use to find your limit. Then we have to go to the chart to find what your limit is. This chart is out on our website, and it's also right here in the presentation. You're going to use those two numbers to find what row you're in. So you start out with your earned row. In the example, you're earning 5 weeks of vacation per year. And then you move over to the payable sub row, and you're allowed to sell 2. And so then you stick with this sub row and you find your tier. If you're in tier 1, your limit is going to be 4 weeks per year. If you're in tier 2, your limit is going to be 8 weeks per year. And then you come back to the worksheet, put your limit in the chart. So that's how you find out what your limit is. Okay, now let's talk about if a lot of people, once they know their limit, they're interested in selling or cashing out vacation in order selling or cashing out vacation so that it can be included as compensation so that their retirement allowance can increase. And so what I will do is explain to you if that's something that you're thinking about doing, then this is how that works. So what you're going to want to do is once you know your limit, then you, through a combination of selling a vacation and cashing out vacation, you would want to get compensated for your earned vacation up to that limit. So in this example, this person is going to cash out 8 weeks of vacation. So that means they simply have 8 weeks of vacation, their earned vacation on the books that they haven't taken yet at the time of termination and or retirement. And then we're simply going to, and then they've gotten up to their limit. And so we will include all 8 weeks worth of that vacation in their compensation for calculating their retirement. They did not need to sell any. Okay. And they didn't sell any. Now, let me take a slightly different example. Let's say that you're still earning 5 weeks of vacation per year, but you're actually allowed to sell an additional week. You can sell 3 of those 5 weeks if you so choose. And again, maybe I didn't say this before, but this is a tier 2 example because the vast majority of people are general members in tier 2. And for tier 1, you don't really have to think about a lot because it's like 1 year's final compensation period, and so the limits are really easy to achieve. For tier 2, when people want to get up to the limit, they kind of have to do some thinking. Okay, so in this example, you earn 5 weeks of vacation and you're allowed to sell 3 weeks of vacation. If you go back and look at the chart, that actually makes your limit go up from 8 to 12. Okay, so the limit for this person in this situation is 12 weeks of vacation. Now, to your question, the open question, there's this additional limit on how much vacation you can cash out when you stop working and or retire. Your employer will only let you cash out 2 times your accrual rate of vacation. In this example, 2 times your accrual rate is 10 weeks of vacation. They're basically only letting you cash out 2 years worth of vacation. Anything above this, you lose. So if you are earning 5 weeks of vacation per year, and at the time you stop working, you have 11 weeks of vacation on the books, the extra week above the 2 times your accrual rate goes poof, disappears. You don't get paid for it. You don't get salary credit for it. In Acera's formula, you didn't take it, so you get nothing. So that's why if you're in this situation and you can't get, and you're trying to get up to the limit, and your limit is more than 2 times your accrual rate, and you can't get to it simply by cashing out vacation, that's when you would want to sell vacation. Okay. So while you're still working, you just think about this in advance and you say, okay, I can't get up to the 12 simply by having 10 on the books to cash out. So I'll go ahead and sell 2 now so that I don't lose it. And then I'll have the 10 on the books and then it'll get me up to the 12. Now, going back to the previous example, This person did not need to sell any because they still are operating under that limitation of 2 times their accrual rate. They can't cash out more than 10 weeks, but that doesn't matter for them because their limit is less than 2 times their accrual rate, 8. So they can easily get up to the 8 simply by cashing out vacation. They don't need to sell any, which is why in this example, I show them not selling any, because this is by far the easiest and best way to do it. You just simply cash it out. Now, if you can't quite get up there, that's when you would want to sell some vacation while you're still working. Okay, so then I always get the question, what happens if I already sold a bunch of vacation? A lot of people will sell their vacation for extra cash, or there's this kind of old thinking from prior to the Pension Reform Act of 2012, where you were trying to sell a whole bunch of vacation in your last 4 years or your last 3 years of work if you're in tier 2. So if you already sold a bunch of vacation, you have 2 options. One is that you just simply cash out the difference. So let's say that in the same example, you're earning 5 weeks of vacation per year and you're allowed to sell 3. Let's say you sold 6 weeks of vacation at some point in, to stick with the tier 2 example, in your 3-year final compensation period. At some point in that 3 years, you sold 6 weeks of vacation. Well, because it's in your final compensation period, we're going to already include that as salary in your retirement calculation. So to get up to the limit, you would just simply cash out the difference, which is 6, to get up to the 12. Okay, option number 2 is if you want to, you can cash out more. Excuse me. If you want to, you can cash out more and it's okay. So let's stick with the example where you sold 6 and you're trying to get up to the 12. Well, you still have a bunch of vacation on the books that you want to cash out, and so you cash out 10. Now, your limit is going to be 12. Your limit is your limit. We can't include more salary, more of this vacation compensation as salary than your limit. Okay, what's going to happen is, back when you sold the 6 weeks of vacation, and they wrote you a check or various checks for that vacation, that went in your bank account. Okay, now it's time for you to stop working and retire, and you have 10 weeks on the books, and you're going to cash out for that. You earned that, and it's not over the 2 times your accrual rate limit, so they're going to cash you out for that as well. All 10 weeks worth of that money goes into your bank account as well. So you get all the money. You get all the money for all of this. What we're going to do at Acera, because your limit is 12, is we're going to pick the highest 12 weeks from this 16 that you were paid for to include as compensation in your calculation. And because for tier 2, it's a 3-year final compensation period, the vast majority of the time between raises and cost of living increases, you get paid at a higher rate at the end of that 3 years than you were at the beginning. And so you got paid more for each of these 10 weeks than you probably did for these 6 weeks. And so we're going to take these 10 weeks, and then we're going to find the 2 highest weeks that you were paid for from this 6, and that's the 12 that we're going to use. So that may answer your question. I usually get the question, is it better to sell or cash out? The answer to that is it's better to cash out, because for most of your limit, because of that idea where you're getting a higher rate of pay over that 3-year period, you're getting a higher rate of pay at the end of that 3 years, and so you're getting more compensation for this 10 weeks than for back when you sold these 6. So those are the limits. Okay, let's see. So I have a question here. Okay, the question is, you're tier 2. You earn 5 weeks of vacation per year. You sold 2 weeks worth of vacation per year. Is your limit on selling a vacation 8 weeks or 10 weeks? So you're going to have two limits that we're going to look at. One limit is this 2 times your accrual rate limit. So you can't cash out more than 10 times or more than 10 weeks worth of vacation. Okay. Your second limit is going to be based on these two numbers. So do you know how much vacation you're allowed to sell per year? And this would be your employer's rule of how much vacation. Okay, so 2 weeks. So then you are in this scenario here. So your limit on how much you can cash out is 10, but your limit on how much of that 10 we can include in the formula to calculate your retirement is 8. So you can still cash out the 10 if you like. You'll get all the money for the 10. It's just 8 weeks worth of that 10 is the limit on how much of that vacation compensation we will include in the formula for you. Any more questions on this vacation topic before we move on? Okay, seeing none. Tier 4 members, welcome back. Sorry we had to take a deep dive into that, but okay, you have a follow-up question. Okay, wouldn't you have to subtract out what you sold? How much did you sell again, did you say? Oh, actually, I have it right here. Oh, you sold 2 weeks of vacation per year. Okay. So you sold 6 weeks of vacation here. 2 weeks per year for 3 years. Okay. So you have 6 weeks of vacation here, and your limit is 8. So your options are you can just stick with the 6 weeks and sell 2 additional to get up to the 8. Or you could sell, you could, I'm sorry, you stick with the 6 weeks, you cash out 2 additional, and that gets you up to the 8. Alternatively, you can cash out more under that idea that you're going to get paid more for those weeks of vacation than you did for these 6 that you sold because of cost of living increases and raises, and it depends on how much your rate of pay has gone up, and it will give you a slight boost. It's not a super important thing to do if you don't want to. If you just want to take your vacation, cash out 2, and between the 6 and the 2, you end up with 8. That is also a fine way to do it. So the difference between cashing out and selling, it's a little bit more money, but it's not going to have a huge impact. So if you don't want to worry too much about it, then you can just do it that way. One more thing that I would say though about that is if you've sold 2 weeks of vacation per year for the last 3 years, assuming that you're making your highest rate of pay, are you making your highest rate of pay now at the end of your career? And assuming that you are, okay, great. You're going to want to make sure that 2 weeks that you sold maybe 3 years ago, you're going to want to make sure that is within the date range of what your final compensation period is going to be. And so if you're working full time, the way that you figure that out is if you're working full time and you are making your highest rate of pay at the end of your career, what you do is you take your retirement date and you subtract 3 years because you're in tier 2. And that's going to be your final compensation period. So 3 years ago, or a little bit less than 3 years ago, when you sold 2 weeks worth of vacation, make sure that 2 is within that date range. and that you actually do have 6 weeks of vacation sold within that final compensation period. If not, then you're going to want to make sure to cash out additional weeks to get up to the 8. So does that answer all of your questions? Okay, good question. Can you just take the vacation before you retire? Yes. Rather than doing this, like in this example, you could simply, if your employer is cool with it, you could just tack this 8 weeks of vacation onto the end of your career. So you're just on vacation leave for your last 8 weeks, and that just means that you're getting your regular pay for your vacation leave that you're using up. Your retirement date gets pushed out another 8 weeks, and then once that leave has exhausted, and then you can set your last day of work to be that day, and your first day of retirement to be the next day, then you will get an additional 8 weeks worth of service credit as well. But you will not get this 8-week extra salary boost to your salary. And so if you do it the first way, you're going to go up 8 weeks more in the service credit column, but you're not going to get that salary boost in the salary column of the formula. And that is not going to increase your retirement allowance anywhere near having the 8 weeks boost in the salary column. It's like a really huge difference. So that's how that works. Any more questions about vacation before I move on? You are welcome. So yes, if you're trying to maximize the retirement allowance using your earned vacation that you need to figure out what to do with, then yes, it's way better to use it for the salary than for the service credit. Okay, let's talk about some limits on your benefit, on your monthly retirement allowance, really quickly. The first limit is that you cannot make more than in retirement than whatever your highest average monthly salary is. So your retirement allowance is capped at whatever your highest average monthly salary is. To say it another way, the limit is basically trying to prevent you from making more in retirement than you are making as a working person, which is totally reasonable. But just a caveat to that, it's capped at your highest average monthly salary, which, as we know from our discussion a minute ago, can be a tiny bit higher based on that vacation pay. The vast majority of people do not hit this limit because for tier 1, you need to have at least maybe like 30 some years of service credit. For tier 2, it's like 40, 45 years and be a certain age. So the vast majority of people do not hit this limit. The second 2 limits, B and C, are for people with high salaries. So I'm not going to go deep into those, but I just wanted to let you know that they're there. If you have a high salary, you can read this info. And then the final limit is for tier 4 members. The salary that we are allowed to include for calculation for your retirement benefit is capped on an annual basis. And I think these numbers actually, these may have increased. I'm not sure if I increased them for this year, but you can find them on our website. So the bad news is that we can't include any more salary in this in the calculation. The good news is that as you go along and you hit the salary cap while you're working, we don't take retirement contributions out for any salary above the cap. And so that gives you more salary to save in your 457B plan or other investments. Okay. So So let me help you estimate your retirement allowance. I'm going to show you two ways because I told you kind of how your retirement allowance is calculated. It's kind of an abstract, all abstract concepts, but you are probably wanting to know how to do this for you specifically. So here's how to do it in two different ways. The first way I'll show you on your worksheet is how to get a ballpark estimate. What I'm going to show you is kind of how to figure out what percentage of your working salary is going to be replaced by your retirement allowance. What you're going to want to do in the worksheet is put in your retirement age. You think of your retirement scenario kind of approximately, because it's a ballpark number. I'm going to retire in 2 years. In 2 years, I'm going to be 58 in this example. So I'll put that into this scenario in the worksheet. Now I also think, okay, in 2 years when I retire, how much service credit will I have? So in this example, this person is going to have 29 years of service credit at the retirement age of 58. In order to find out what percentage of your salary that you're going to have replaced in retirement, you need to find the percentage from this ballpark chart. And so you can go to this URL on our website, or another way to find it is to go out to our website. So here's the home page, and you can click this button, Get Started, or you can just go here to New to Acera. They both go to the same place. Scroll down here, and there are all these buttons for each one of your tiers, each one of the tiers that we have. You click on the button for your tier, this PDF pops open with the chart that shows you, it's a grid of all of the percentages for all the different scenarios. So in the example, the person was retiring with 29 years of service credit at age 58. So we find where those intersect, and they are going to have 50% of their highest salary as replaced as their retirement allowance. So they're achieving 50% salary replacement, 50.03. So we come back to the worksheet. We put that in here. And then what you do is you put in an estimate of what your salary is. You can do it a few ways. You can just kind of think about how much you make per month now, just kind of add up take your annual rate of pay divided by 12, put that in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to actually log into your account on our website and do the benefit estimator, and it will give you an estimate of your highest average monthly salary. But as long as you're in there, you might as well do the precision method, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So, you can just kind of get close here. And then you simply multiply them together. So if your highest average salary currently is $6,000 and you're going to get 50% of that in retirement, you're going to get about $3,000 in retirement. So that's just kind of the ballpark way to do it. Now I'm going to show you the second way to get an idea of what your retirement allowance is going to be in retirement. And I use the term retirement allowance and benefit and pension benefit. Those are kind of all synonymous terms. So you'll see those terms thrown around throughout this. What you do is you, first of all, in your worksheet, we're going to think of a retirement scenario. So you're going to retire in 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years or 10 years, whatever it is. And you think of, you don't have to get super accurate with this. Just kind of think of a scenario and pick a couple of dates in that scenario. If you're planning on working and going straight into retirement, what you do is you have a separation date, and then your projected retirement date is the next day after that, because it has to be at least the next day after. If instead you're going to stop working but defer your retirement to a later date, you can do that too. You put your separation date in here, excuse me, and then your projected retirement date is sometime after that. We're going to use those two dates in our online estimator. So you go out to our website, you click the login button. If you have never logged in before, you're going to have to create an account. and answer some security questions and put in your email address, which is your username, make a password, and then you can get in. And once you get in there, you'll find that your pension data is there waiting for you because you're already a member and it's already in the database. The first thing that you'll see when you get into this online member portal, which we call Web Member Services, is you'll see this summary page, and it has what tier you're in, who you work for, whether you have reciprocity, some other info, your employment date, entry date, how much service credit you've earned so far, if you've purchased any, it's in there, how much you've contributed to the retirement system. There's a lot of data, interesting data in here for you. What you're going to do is click on estimate a benefit. And you're going to take those two dates from your worksheet, your separation date and your projected retirement date, and enter those in here. So let me just zoom in here so that it's a little bigger so you can see it a little bit better. You put those dates in, and then you hit the calculate button. When you hit calculate, it's going to make a projection of your service credit that you will have earned in this scenario. So these are dates in the future. So it's going to continue to add service credit to what service credit it already has in the database for you to give you a projection of your service credit in this scenario. And it's going to do the same thing with salary. It's going to project forward salary. It doesn't project salary increases, so it's going to use your current salary to fill in any future salary it needs to fill in to make the salary projection. You have the opportunity to override both of those numbers if you like. The reason you might want to override the service credit number is you want to see the effect of selling or converting that sick leave into service credit, or you want to see the effect of what would happen if you purchase additional service credit if you have some eligible time to purchase. And the way you override this number is by adding to it. So let's say that you're going to do the sick leave conversion, you're going to get another 3 months of service credit. 3 months is a quarter year. So you would take 0.25, which is a quarter, you would add it to this number and put the new grand total into the service credit fields. And then salary, you can override that too. If you're going to retire maybe a few years from now and you want to see the effect of maybe cost of living increases, you can do that. So this field right here, hours of cash vacation compensation. Now this is optional. If you want a nice conservative estimate, you can just leave it blank. But if you want to see the effect of getting compensated for your vacation, like we were just talking about in that whole 10 to 15 minute discussion that we were having, you can see the effect of that here by adding hours of cash vacation compensation to this field. And I can show you how to do that without overestimating. So first of all, in this example, we're going to use this area of the worksheet here to figure out what number to put into that field. This how to calculate hours of cash vacation compensation for the online benefit estimator. So step one is you run an estimate and you leave this blank. Okay, and you can fill in beneficiary information here and you hit get estimate. Now, what you're going to want to do in the worksheet here is take your limit from the other part of the worksheet where we establish what your limit of vacation compensation that's includable in the salary calculation is, and you put that in here. If you're an Alameda County employee or you work for one of the other employers, you put your limit in weeks here. If you're Alameda Health System, you start here. You put your limit in hours. Okay, now if you're putting your limit in weeks, what you're going to do is the next thing that you want to do is put in the amount of hours that you work per week. So if you work 40 hours, you put that in. If you work 37 and a half hours, you put it in. And then you multiply your limit by the number of hours you work per week. And that's how you get your limit in hours. So that's why it says Alameda Health System people start here, because we already know what your limit is in hours without having to do that calculation. And the reason that I was pausing for a second is because I updated this worksheet yesterday. And I think I added this arrow actually to the worksheet, and I think we may have put it in the wrong row. So it should be in this row here, limit in hours. So I'll go ahead and make that update after the presentation. But yeah, Alameda Health System, we know your limit in hours, you start here. Okay, what our goal here is to help you not overestimate if you have sold vacation. So if you haven't sold any vacation, you can skip this whole thing. If you have sold vacation, we don't want you to include that vacation in this field. So what you do, the reason that I had you run this estimate and leave it blank is we need to figure out how much vacation that you've already sold is being included in the estimate. So here is your retirement benefit estimate that is generated from the online estimator. Now what you're going to be looking at is this average salary date range right here. There's two dates. This is basically what the benefit estimator is considering the date range for your final compensation period is. So you think back, did I sell vacation during this date range? If so, how much? And you put the amount of vacation that you sold during that date range in this field here. So in this example, I sold 1 week of vacation during that date range. And then all we're simply doing is subtracting that amount of vacation from our limit to get the amount of vacation that we put in the field. And then you put that in here. So again, this is to prevent you, if you sold vacation during that salary date range, from overestimating here. Otherwise, if you didn't sell any vacation and your limit in this example is simply 96, if you want to see what the effect of the maximum number of hours that we can include of vacation compensation that we can include in the salary calculation for you is, you could put 96 in here. Okay. And also, if you go back and do this at some other point and you're not following along with the video, all of this is also explained in this link, this hyperlink here, don't overestimate. Okay, and then you click get estimate, and again, you end up with your retirement benefit estimate. And just to zoom in here to show you some of the details of this, all of this up here is the demographic and other information and other data that is using to calculate the estimate. And the estimate is actually down here. This is your estimated monthly benefits, and it gives you an estimate for each one of the different retirement options. For our purposes right now, you can just simply look at this number right here for the unmodified option. This is the maximum retirement allowance that you can get under any of the options. But we will go into some more detail about the other options, and I'll bring the screenshot back up later on in the presentation. So that is how you get a precision estimate of your retirement allowance. And if you want to, you can keep track of that once you get the precision estimate on your worksheet. So you could take the worksheet and staple them together, or you could simply write in what the precision estimate is in here. So you wrote down the separation date, projected retirement date that you used in the estimator. If you put in hours of cash vacation compensation into the estimator, you may want to record that here just to keep track, and then you can record your precision estimate into the worksheet here. So I showed you two ways to get an estimate, the ballpark way, the precision way. There is a third way, which is if you want us to do the calculation for you, you can submit a retirement estimate request to us. And you can do that if you log into your account on our website, or if you don't log in and you simply navigate to our forms page, there's a retirement estimate request form in there, and you can submit that to us. When you do that, what's going to happen is you're submitting kind of a manual request to us. So one of our retirement specialists is going to take that request and they're going to do the calculation for you. It can take some time. You're going to go into a queue with all of the other people that have made these requests. And the queue is kind of based on how far out your retirement date is. The retirement specialist that calculates it is going to use the same software that you would use in the precision estimator. So it uses the same math in the precision estimator and web member services. So you're going to get the same results. So I think by far the easiest and quickest way to get a retirement benefit estimate is to use that online benefit estimator. It's available 24/7. It only takes you like 5 minutes to get an estimate versus submitting this form, emailing it to us or sticking it in the mail or uploading it into your account in our website, and then waiting for your retirement specialist to get back to you, and they're going to send you the estimate in the snail mail. So it's going to take some time. That is how to get a retirement estimate. So let's talk about the next item on the checklist, your retirement eligibility. Okay, let me help you verify whether you're eligible for retirement or when you're going to become eligible for retirement. So we're talking about this milestone on the pension milestone chart. The first set of eligibility requirements is for tiers 1, 2, and 3. We'll do tier 4 in just a second. So you have 3 kind of scenarios for how you can become eligible to retire. Option 1 is that you're age 50 or older. You have at least 5 years of service credit with the SERA, and you have at least 10 years of membership. So for the vast majority of people, this simply means that you can, if you're going to work for more than 10 years, you just think about it as having 10 years and being over age 50. Because if you have 10 years of service credit, you have more than 5 years of service credit. So you have 10 years of service credit and membership, and you're over age 50. Now, some people, you work for 5 years or more, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and you decide that it's time for you to go. So you quit. You can still retire. You've achieved the 5 years of service credit you need under option 1. And if you're over age 50, you can retire. But you have to make sure that you wait until you have at least 10 years of membership. So that means 10 years has to transpire between your date of entry into a SERA and when you're trying to retire. You have to get over that 10-year mark to be eligible to retire. So that's option 1. Option 2 is you can, with a general membership, have 30 years of service credit, or with a safety membership, have 20 years of service credit and retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Option number 3 is you can retire at age 70 or older and have any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years of service credit you need for option 1. So once you achieve one of those 3 scenarios, then you are eligible to retire, and you can choose your retirement date and retire. If you're in tier 4, you have 2 different retirement scenarios that make you eligible. The first is that as a general member, you're age 52 or older, or as a safety member, you're age 50 or older, and you have at least 5 years of service credit. Then you can retire. You don't have to do that 10 years of membership thing. Option number 2 is that you have to be age 70 or older and have any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years, and then you can retire. So now that you know when you're going to achieve retirement eligibility, you can put that date in here in your worksheet. If you already know you're eligible for retirement, like you're way eligible, and you can't really figure out what the retirement eligibility date was, you don't have to worry about it. So this is just, again, you can just put approximate dates in here. Okay, that topic was easy. That one was quick. Next topic, choosing your retirement date. We're talking about this milestone right here. After you become eligible to retire, then you're going to retire on a date that you choose. You're going to want to think about these 7 things when you're finding the best day to retire. And I'll go through each one of these, okay? Number 1, will you have enough income? This one's kind of basic. Most people think about this, but a few people don't really consider this. This is just kind of like a quick intro to this idea and what you would want to do in order to kind of think into the future about whether you're going to have enough income to pay for your life in retirement, is just get some estimates. So you get that SERA retirement estimate that I just showed you how to get. Also, if you have a deferred compensation account, which is your 457B account through the deferred compensation program, it's a good idea to log into your account and see how much savings you have in there or any other investments, see how much you have in your investment accounts, and also get an estimate from Social Security. And then that will kind of give you more of a picture of what your income is going to be in retirement. If you want to, you can also think about post retirement expenses and do some projections to see if the amount that you're bringing in is going to be enough to pay for your expenses in retirement. If you don't want to do that, what retirement planners will tell you is that you're going to need to have at least 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income as retirement income to maintain your standard of living in retirement. So whatever you were making before retirement, you're going to need like 70 to 80% of that to maintain your standard of living through a combination of these things. So the reason that I put up this slide is because it's just kind of a good idea to think about it in advance. If you're not going to quite get up to the 70 or 80%, you can kind of make alternate plans. Maybe you work a little bit more, earn a little bit more retirement, or, move somewhere cheaper that reduces your post-retirement expenses. I will really quickly show you, if you are interested in this topic, this is all I'll say on the topic, but if you're more interested in this, what you can do is we have a page that has a lot more detail about doing these projections on our website. So you go down to our Ready to Retire section here, and you go down to estimate your retirement income. And so we have a whole page on this. It has the links out to all the estimators, the Social Security estimator. And then there are some different ways that you can calculate whether you will have enough income to retire. There's even a link to the AARP retirement calculator. And then if you wanted to, you could actually do this budget worksheet that we linked to from TIAA to calculate your expenses in retirement. So up to you. Totally optional. Okay, the second thing that you're going to want to think about in choosing your retirement date are those age factor percentage dates that I talked about in the first part of the presentation. I just want you to be cognizant of these dates. So remember that when we're thinking about those age factor percentages, which are the percentages of your highest salary that you'll get for each year of service, those increase with every quarter year based on your birthday. So if your birthday is January 15th, for example, a quarter year after your birthday is April 15th, quarter year after that is July 15th, quarter year after that is October 15th, and then back to your birthday. So if you have not yet achieved the maximum age factor for your tier, which is based on, there's a maximum age for each tier, then every one of these dates that you pass in the year that you don't retire, you're going up one notch in the age factor chart, and you're getting a slightly higher age factor percentage. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you are going to, you have not yet achieved the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. Your birthday is January 15th, and you're considering retiring on July 14th. Don't do that. Because if you just wait 2 days, if you work on July 15th and retire on July 16th, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage, and it actually makes your retirement allowance go up by about 1% and change, a little over 1%, just by waiting those 2 days. The same thing happens with all of these dates. Now, if you're going to retire halfway between one of these dates, and you don't want to work that extra 6 weeks to get past the date, that's fine. The only point I'm making with this slide is to try to get you to not retire right before one of these dates, when if you just work another week or a few days and you get past the date, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. That's the only point here. Okay, next item that you're going to look at and think about when you're choosing your retirement date could be cost of living adjustment. You don't have to think about this, but a lot of people do. Now, just to introduce you to the concept of the cost of living adjustment, you saw in the first part of the presentation that this is a vested benefit. Okay, this is a guaranteed cost of living adjustment that you're going to get every year in retirement. It's calculated based on the consumer price index increase for the San Francisco Bay Area. So basically, that's calculated by the Department of Labor. It's basically a measure of inflation. If prices go up a certain percent from December to December in the Bay Area, that becomes the cost of living adjustment. So like if prices go up 5%, hopefully that doesn't happen because that's a huge amount of of inflation. But if it does go up by that much, that becomes the cost of living adjustment. And the cost of living adjustment is posted to everyone's retirement account who is in retired status on April 1st of every single year. Now, having said all that, there is a maximum amount of cost of living adjustment that you can get per year. For tiers 2 and 4, it's 2%. For tiers 1 and 3, it's 3%. So what happens in that example that I just gave you if inflation is above that number? Like I just gave you the example of 5%. Well, what we do is we take the extra percentage points and we bank them for the future. If inflation is below these percentages, then we'll take percentage points out of your COLA bank to get you up to the maximum. You don't have to remember all of this, it happens automatically, but kind of the bottom line is that if you've been retired for a few years, almost everyone who has been retired for at least a few years has some percentage points in their COLA bank. And so you tend to get the maximum annual cost of living adjustment, the 2 or 3%. Even if the inflation dips below that, if it's like 1.5%, then we would take 0.5% out of tiers 2 and 4 COLA bank to get you up to the 2, and we would take a percentage and a half to get you up to the 3 for tiers 1 and 3. If it's your first year and inflation is below the maximum, then that's kind of where you would just get whatever the inflation number is because you don't have banked percentage points. Okay. Next topic that you may want to think about when choosing your retirement date. Sometimes there's a dilemma between the age factor percentage and the cost of living adjustment based on the date that you're going to retire. So a lot of the time there isn't, but I usually get this question, so I thought I'd make it a concept that you may want to think about. So the people who are going to want to think about this are people who are retiring in the spring, who have not yet reached the maximum age factor for their tier, as in this example, and your birth date or one of your quarter year dates falls in such a way that the age factor percentage date is kind of right after the cost of living adjustment. So in this example, this person's birthday is January 15th, and so the next quarter year date is April 15th. So they're going to think about retiring in the spring, and they're thinking, should I retire on April 16th? In that case, I would get the age factor increase for retiring on April 16th and getting past that April 15th quarter year date. But I would miss the cost of living adjustment, which I would have gotten had I been in retired status as of April 1st. Or should I retire on April 1st or before? So you can retire as of April 1st or just before it, or anytime before it, actually. And you would get the cost of living increase in this example, but you would miss that age factor increase that you're going to get in a little over 2 weeks by getting past the April 16th date. Which should you do? Well, you probably already know the answer because I already gave you all the percentages. If the cost of living adjustment is the maximum for that year, and we always know this in early February, we posted out on our website, would go with the cost of living adjustment because you would get a 2% increase or a 3% increase based on your tier versus the 1% increase you would get based on the age factor percentage date. Okay, now having said all that, if you're instead in this example, you're like not going to retire in the spring, you're going to retire in the summer, well then you're going to get more than you would in either of these scenarios. Like let's say that you work past July 15th, which is the next quarter. Well, you go up 2 notches in the age factor chart. Plus you would get 3 more months of service credit, and that would get you a higher retirement allowance boost even than the cost of living adjustment. So there is a time after the cost of living adjustment on April 1st every year where it probably would have been better for you to retire on April 1st or before to get the cost of living adjustment, but that quickly resolves itself within a couple of months. For the rest of the year, you just think about those quarter year age factor dates. Unless you're already older than the maximum age factor for your tier, and you don't even have to worry about this. Like if you're a tier 2 general member and you're already 65, or you're a tier 1 general member, you're already 61, or you're a safety member who is in tier 1 or tier 2B and you're already age 50, don't worry about this. You just retire whenever you want. And really thinking about the cost of living adjustment, this is really only if you're retiring in the spring. You're thinking about, retiring on or before April 1st to get that cost of living adjustment. The rest of the year, if you retire in December, when April 1st comes around, you get the cost of living adjustment. If you retire in September, when April 1st comes around, you get the cost of living adjustment. So you really don't have to worry too much about these dates. But the reason I present this information is if you're thinking about retiring in the spring, then you may want to kind of think about the dates. Okay, number 5. The next thing you're going to want to think about when choosing your date of retirement is if you are trying to go straight into retirement from actively working, then you're going to want to retire on the day after your last day of work. Or another way to say it is retire on the day after your last day on payroll. Another way to say it is retire on the day after your last day in active employment status. So it's okay if you're on leave on this day, or like even this week, if you take vacation leave at the end, or you're sick this day or whatever, you're using up your floating holidays, whatever. As long as you're still on payroll and you're still in active employment status, and what you're going to want to have is the last day that you're on payroll be the day before your first day of retirement. And this is the day that you write on your retirement application. This is the day that you tell your employer is your last day of work. This is the day that you write on your letter of resignation. This is my last day of work. Okay. Letter of resignation date that you write down on your retirement application. And that causes you to go straight into retirement without spending any time as a deferred member. And that's what allows us to do the sick leave conversion for you, to which you get like half of your sick leave as service credit up to a cap. If you spend any days as a deferred member, you lose your sick leave. It goes poof, it disappears. So that's why we stress how to do this so much. Okay, so then the next thing that you're going to want to think about is related. The day that you're choosing as your retirement date should not be a holiday, and it should be a day where you are scheduled to work the day before, okay? Or you would normally be scheduled to work the day before. So for example, if you normally work Monday through Friday, you don't want your retirement date to be on Sunday or Monday, because you don't normally work on Saturday or Sunday, which is the day before these two dates. If you were to choose that, that would cause you to have 1 or 2 days of deferred membership, and that you lose all your sick leave. So you don't do that. So just going back to the calendar, this day should be a day that you're normally scheduled to work, which is your last day on payroll. And also known as the day that you are writing down as your last day on your letter of resignation. Now, for those of you who don't work a regular schedule, people like sheriff's deputies, perhaps, or probation officers, or people in the medical fields, physicians and other medical professionals, you might not have a regular schedule. So what you are going to do is you're going to probably wait more toward the end to choose your retirement date. And then you see what the schedule is going to be. And then if you are scheduled, like let's say you're scheduled Monday through Wednesday that week, okay, that's great. Now you know what your schedule is. And so then you can choose your retirement date as a day where you're scheduled to work the day before. So if you're scheduled to work these 3 days that week, then you could retire on the 23rd, you could retire on the 22nd, you could retire on the 21st, because the day before you would have been scheduled to work. So that's how that works. And finally, the last thing that you want to think about when choosing your retirement date is to not pick July 1st. Any other day is a wonderful day to retire. Pick any other day. Don't retire on July 1st. And the reason that you don't retire on July 1st is because, thinking back to the whole topic where we were talking about vacation compensation being included in your salary and what the limitations on that are. If you retire on July 1st, all the limits on that are lower. All the limits that I showed you in the presentation, and if you go back to those slides, you'll see it says, don't retire on July 1st. All the limits are based on the assumption that you're retiring any other day, okay? Now, you don't have to understand why. It has to do with straddling fiscal years, but just pick any other day. Even if you're not doing the vacation thing, just pick any other day. June 30th is a beautiful day to retire. July 2nd, wonderful day to retire. Okay. So those are the 7 things that you probably should think about when you're choosing your retirement date. And now that we have gone through that, you can go ahead, if you happen to know what it is or you know what you're going to change it to, you can put in your projected retirement date in your worksheet if you so choose. Additionally, since you know that if you're going straight from active work into retirement, that your separation date should be the day before that, now you know what to put in your worksheet for the separation date. You just subtract 1 day and put that in here. Okay, next topic. Next item on the checklist, applying to retire. Excuse me. Here is what the retirement application process will look like. Step 1 that we want you to do is go through our preparing to retire section on our website. It has a lot of information about providing documents, changing your account username to your personal email address on our website, notifying your department. There's even some instructions on how to write a letter of resignation, etc. I can actually show you that. You can go to this page, or I can show you where to find that out on the website. Starting from the home page, you can just come under members and go to preparing to retire, or you can also scroll down and go to preparing to retire. They both go to the same place. And this is our section. It's in reverse chronological order based on the things that you should do first. You will notice that there are some topics that you already understand based on having attended the seminar. So you can just kind of skim those. And so you just go down through this section and just understand the information. Okay, step 2 is you're going to set up a ready to retire counseling session. This is optional, but we highly recommend it. We're doing these over video currently, and you're going to schedule this within the 3 to 6 month period before when you are thinking about retiring. So you take your proposed retirement date, subtract 6 months, and go ahead and schedule this. Contact us about this within that 3 to 6 month period. And you do that on this page, sarah.org/counseling. I'll go back to the page I just showed you to show you where that's at. It's right here at the bottom. It's the second to last step. You schedule that ready to retire counseling session by going here and filling out this web form and submitting it to us. What will happen when you do that is one of our retirement specialists will go through your information, and then we will contact you to schedule the retirement counseling session, and it will be scheduled for the 60-day period right before your retirement date. So that 60-day period is when you can actually submit a retirement application. So we're going to have your counseling session during that period, and we will contact you about setting that up. Okay, step 3 is you're going to submit your retirement application within the next 60 days before your retirement date. And when you are in contact with your retirement counselor, they will help you through this process, and they will help you submit it during that counseling session. And we're doing these over video now, if you like, or we can do it over the phone. So you can do it on Zoom or you can do it over the phone. There's also instructions back on that preparing to retire page. It's the last step here, applying to retire. And it has a electronic retirement packet on here, and then it has all the steps to actually submit your retirement application. So what you're doing is you're submitting a retirement application, and on that application is your retirement date. And so we take your application, we scan it into our system, and once that date passes, you're retired. So that's going to be your first day of retirement. You are also, during this time, going to submit an option election agreement, which is you're going to pick one of 5 retirement options and submit that option election agreement. And you will also probably do that during your counseling session. We are, if you're watching this in the future, this is mid-January of 2021. If you're watching this in the future, we have probably combined these 2 steps, and you will see these option election on the retirement application. So we're in the process of doing that. Okay, so then once your retirement date passes, you're retired. Woohoo! It's amazing. And then you get to collect your retirement benefit for the rest of your life, the one that you've been spending so much hard work earning. Now that you know what day to call, or I'm sorry, not to call, but to submit that retirement counseling form, you can go ahead and fill that date in here. And so you simply take your projected retirement date, subtract 6 months, and then that's when you submit your form to start scheduling that ready to retire counseling session. It's good to do it early because we change this process so that you do it early, and that way we get some of the gears turning on getting your retirement benefit calculated, so that whenever you get your first retirement check, it's going to be a 100% payment of your final calculated retirement. So the vast majority of people, I think like 99% of people these days, are getting their 100% payment right off the bat, which is you get your first retirement check within 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer paycheck. And it's going to be a monthly check. It's going to be direct deposit, and it's paid on the last business day of each month. But if there are any major issues with your file, then you're going to get 80% payments until we resolve those issues. And then we'll get you up to your 100% payments, and then issue you retro payment for any less than 100% payments we had to make. Okay, this is the point where I describe to you the 5 different retirement options. There is the unmodified option and options 1 through 4. At the time of retirement, on that option election agreement, or very shortly, it's going to be on your retirement application. This is your one opportunity to choose your one retirement option, and you can't change your selection later on. So at the time of retirement is when you choose your option, and you can't change it. For each one of these options, I will show you a slide that has a bunch of text on it and a table. The top row of the table will describe your retirement allowance as a retiree. The bottom row or rows will describe the benefits, the death benefits that your beneficiaries will be eligible for after your death. Okay. So starting off with the first retirement option, we call it the unmodified option. This is the one that almost everyone picks because it pays the maximum retirement allowance to you, the retiree. So after your death, what the unmodified option does is it pays 60% of whatever monthly retirement payment that you were getting, retirement allowance payment you were getting. Every month after your death, it's going to pay your beneficiary a 60% of that amount. So whatever your retirement allowance was, your beneficiary is going to get 60%. Now, a beneficiary, this word just means somebody who gets benefits. Your beneficiary is somebody who you designate to get your benefits. In the context of ACERA, it's who you designate to get your ACERA death benefits. And then this word right here, continuance, that just means a continuing payment. So you're getting your retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life while you're living. And then after your death, your beneficiary will get a monthly continuance, a monthly continuing payment every month for the rest of their life, in most cases. And those cases would be for the unmodified option. It can only go to qualified beneficiaries. And the qualified beneficiaries are your spouse or your state registered domestic partner who you have married or registered at least 1 year before retirement. If you don't have a spouse or state registered domestic partner, you can name one or more minor children for the monthly continuance after your death. And this is the case where it's not for the lifetime. It's a temporary benefit, and it stops when they reach age 18, or it can continue up to age 22 as long as they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school. And then it will cut off at 22 unless in that time they get married or they register a state domestic partner with the state, and then it cuts off. So these are the only people under the unmodified option that you can name for a continuance. With some of the other options, it expands your the group of people that you can name as beneficiaries. But just sticking with the unmodified option for now. If you don't have one of these people to name as a continuance beneficiary, but you still want the unmodified option, don't worry. You can still pick the unmodified option. And you can even name a beneficiary or more than one beneficiary. But whoever you name for a beneficiary, if they're not one of these people, they will only be eligible for a lump sum payment. That is a one-time payment. That's why they call it a lump sum, because it's just one-time payment. And the payment is the balance of your contribution account. So as you go through your career, you're contributing to ACERA, and we're keeping track of your contributions in your contribution account. We're also paying interest to your contributions in that account every time the fund earns interest. So when you go to retire, there's a balance in that account. What your lump sum beneficiary will get is whatever's left over in that account. So your employee contributions plus interest minus all of the money that we've already paid you out in your retirement allowance. And I will tell you that the balance of your contribution account is exhausted within the first 3 to 5 years of your retirement. So if you die after the first 3 to 5 years of retirement, there will be no lump sum amount left for your beneficiary. So that's the bad news. The good news is that just because your money runs out of your contribution account doesn't mean as a retiree you stop receiving your allowance, because it's a lifetime allowance. You are participating in a defined benefit pension plan, which means you get a monthly retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. So in that first 3 to 5 years of your retirement under the unmodified option, through your retirement allowance payments, we're giving you back all the money that you paid into the system throughout your entire career. You get all that back within the first 3 to 5 years. Everything after that is like pure bonus for you. It's amazing. And it's because of the employer contributions partially, but mostly it's because of the investment earnings. We professionally invest your money, and your money is pooled and professionally invested, and the interest actually pays for 75% of your lifetime retirement allowance. So participating in a defined benefit pension plan is really powerful, and it's a really strong benefit, and it means that you have a guaranteed income for the rest of your life. Okay, one more thing I'll say about the unmodified option is there is a scenario where at the time of retirement, you had a spouse, domestic partner, minor children that you named for the 60% continuance, but they pass away before you do. If that happens, you can name a new beneficiary in retirement, but only for lump sum payments, because the only time you can name a beneficiary to receive a continuance is at the time of retirement. So if they pass away before you do, then whoever your new beneficiary is only going to be a lump sum beneficiary. And even if the balance of your contribution account is exhausted in retirement, there are still some other death benefits in there. So there's like the $1,000 lump sum death benefit that you would need to name a new beneficiary for. Also, if whenever you pass away, it's usually in like halfway through the month, and so we owe you like a partial month's worth of retirement, and so they would receive that. We would also be refunding any healthcare payments that you made in advance, because you pay those a month in advance, the premiums. So there are some lump sum amounts that they would still get even if your contribution account is exhausted. Okay, that's everything I know about the unmodified option. The next option is option number 1. This is the only one of the 5 options that never pays a continuance to anyone at any time. What this does is it, for you, the retiree, this pays a little bit less than the unmodified option, tiny bit less. What it does is it allows you to name a lump sum beneficiary, and it expands the time that it takes to exhaust the balance of the account that we use to pay out a lump sum. And there's some like accounting, like complicated accounting that they do for that, but instead of 3 to 5 years that it takes to exhaust that account, it extends that time to 10 to 12 years. So if you were to die in the first 10 to 12 years, there would be a lump sum in there left over for your lump sum beneficiary under option 1. Option number 2 does a couple of things. First of all, for your retirement allowance, it's going to pay less than the unmodified option. So one of the things that the option number 2 does is, rather than paying a 60% continuance to your beneficiary for the rest of their life, it pays 100%. Whatever you were making as your retirement allowance, your beneficiary is going to get 100% of that amount for the rest of their life. Additionally, the second thing that it does, it expands the list of people that you can name as a beneficiary to anyone. It doesn't have to be spouse, state registered domestic partner, or minor children. It can be anyone. So they will get 100% monthly continuance. Now, the caveat here is that this pays less to you as a retiree than the unmodified option does. And the amount less that it pays is based on your beneficiary's life expectancy. So if you name someone who is significantly younger than you, they have a longer life expectancy. So we're expecting to pay them for longer, for more time. And so we're going to pay you less upfront. So that means your retirement allowance would be reduced upfront. And this calculation is all made at the time of retirement. So whatever we calculate your retirement allowance to be at the time of retirement, that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life, even if your beneficiary under option 2 dies before you do. We don't recalculate your retirement. So that's option number 2. Option number 3 is the exact same as option 2 with one difference. Instead of paying 100% to your beneficiary of what you were receiving in your retirement allowance, it pays 50%. Okay. So all the other stuff is the exact same as option 2. This pays to you, the retiree, less than the unmodified option, but it pays more than option 2, and that's because we're paying the beneficiary less. Rather than paying them 100%, we're paying them 50%. And all the other same rules apply. And then finally, our last option, option number 4, this is the only option where you can specify multiple beneficiaries for a lifetime continuance. Again, this is going to pay less than the unmodified option, and the reduction, the amount less than the unmodified option, it's going to pay is based on your youngest beneficiary's life expectancy. So in this option, you're naming more than one beneficiary for a lifetime continuance. And you can specify the dollar amount or the percentage to multiple beneficiaries. So if you have 2 adult children, for example, people ask about this all the time. You can't name them as beneficiaries under the unmodified option because they're not minors. You can't name them both as beneficiaries for options 2 and 3 because you can only name one beneficiary for continuance. So that's why you pick option 4, where you can name both of them as continuance beneficiaries. then they would get after your death, they would get a continuance for the rest of their life. But the reduction from the unmodified option is based on the life expectancy of the youngest beneficiary in this case. Otherwise, option number 4, all the same rules apply as options number 2 and 3. Okay, those are the 5 options. Is there anything else I can tell you about these options? And while you think about that, I'll just show you how to get an idea of how much each one of these options is going to pay. So this is the screenshot again of our online benefit estimator. Putting in our retirement scenario, we're hitting calculate. It's giving us projections of service credit, salary. Then you come down here, and what you want to do is put in your accurate beneficiary information of who you're thinking about naming as your continuance beneficiary or lump sum beneficiary. If you have already designated some people or a person as your active member, a SARA beneficiary for death benefits should you pass away as an active member, you will probably already see those people or that person in this dropdown, and you can just select them. If you do that, make sure the date of birth is correct, because some of them are incorrect, and that'll throw off the calculations if the date of birth is incorrect. Otherwise, you can just type the info in here, and you hit get estimate, and again, you end up with the retirement benefit estimate PDF. Okay, and just to zoom in here again, now these different retirement options make a little more sense. So what this is showing you is how much your retirement, this column is what your retirement allowance will be as a retired ACERA member for the rest of your life under each one of the options. Unmodified option, option 1, option 2, option 3. And then this column is what the beneficiary's continuance would be after you pass away. Okay, and you'll notice some things about this once you calculate this. You'll notice that for the unmodified option, the beneficiary allowance is 60% of this number. You'll notice under option number 1, there is no beneficiary allowance because it doesn't pay a continuance to anyone ever. You'll notice in option number 2, these numbers are the same because your beneficiary is 100% of whatever you were getting. You'll notice under option 3 that this number is 50% of this number because they get the beneficiary gets 50%, and you'll also notice option 3 pays more than option 2. We do not provide estimates for option 4 because the math is more complicated. So if you want an estimate for that, you have to submit a retirement benefit estimate request form. And there's 2 more numbers on here, which I'll explain for option number 1. Since this doesn't pay a continuance to a beneficiary, this pays a lump sum death benefit. What these 2 numbers do is help you figure out how long it will take to exhaust the amount of money that a lump sum beneficiary would get. So this first number is the total amount that will be in there at the beginning in this scenario. The second number is the monthly amount that will come out of that amount and that goes into your retirement allowance payments. And so if you want to figure out how long that money is going to last and how long there will be a lump sum amount for a lump sum beneficiary, you simply take the big number and you divide it by the little number, and that'll tell you how many months that money is going to last. Then you can even divide by 12, and that'll tell you how many years it's going to last. And like I said, it'll last probably 10 to 12 years. Okay, any other questions about the death benefits before I talk about healthcare? Okay, well, let me know. Now let's move on to the final big topic. There's a couple other little topics after this, but this is the final big topic in the presentation. And this is about the other benefits that ACERA offers, including healthcare benefits. This slide is titled non-guaranteed benefits because these benefits are not guaranteed. These are not invested benefits like I was showing at the beginning of the presentation. The retirement allowance, the cost of living increase, the $1,000 lump sum death benefit, plus like the other death benefits associated with the retirement options, those are all considered guaranteed benefits. These are not guaranteed benefits. These are extra benefits that at some point in the past, your employer decided that the retirees that were retiring from your employer would need these extra benefits to pay for their life in retirement. So they created this reserve account that pays for these benefits. Our board of retirement, ACERA's board of retirement, administers this reserve account. And so they're the ones that determine what the benefits are and what the levels of benefits are. And they monitor the sustainability of this reserve fund to ensure it's sustainable into the future, which is why they may make adjustments to it. They may eliminate benefits or reduce some benefits. Most of the time, what they do is they hold the benefit levels the same between 2 years and don't increase them, even though the costs go up, in order to maintain the sustainability of the fund. That's the normal tool that they use. But occasionally they have eliminated a benefit. The fund is currently, the fund sustainability is measured by our actuary and how many years they project it'll last in the future. And they do 2 projections a year. And currently the projection is that it's going to last at least 20 years into the future. The board, their measurement of whether the fund is sustainable, they draw the line at 15 years. They say if the actuary projects at least 15 years, then it's considered sustainable. So currently it's considered very sustainable. There is over $900 million in the reserve fund. There's a lot of money to pay these benefits now and into many years in the future. And the board, again, will every year make sure that the fund is sustainable. They look at how much goes out, how much comes in. Okay. So regarding what the benefits are, they are mostly healthcare benefits, but then there's also this supplemental cost of living adjustment benefit. And the board has set the rules on who is eligible to collect these benefits by the amount of years of ACERA service credit that you have at retirement. For the supplemental cost of living adjustment, you don't need any. There's no requirement. There's no service credit requirement. So every retiree is eligible for the supplemental cost of living adjustment. All of the other non-guaranteed benefits start at 10 years of ACERA service credit, and this does not include reciprocal service credit with other agencies. So there is a medical subsidy. MMA stands for monthly medical allowance. It's not mixed martial arts. In this case, it's monthly medical allowance. And it's a subsidy to help pay for the medical benefits that ACERA offers. And there's 3 levels of you being able to collect. There's 3 levels of the subsidy based on your years of service credit. And then there's a dental subsidy, vision subsidy, Medicare subsidy. And these are all benefits. These are all monetary benefits that go to help you cover the cost of you being enrolled in our healthcare plans. So let me tell you about each one of these in a little more detail. First of all, monthly medical allowance is not a guaranteed benefit, not a vested benefit. We just emphasize this because people get it in their head that this is guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. It's based on the sustainability of that reserve fund. The monthly medical allowance goes to offset the cost of our retirees being enrolled in our medical plans, ACERA-sponsored medical plans only, so no outside plans. We have group plan options and individual plan options, and for the group plans, it will offset the cost of your monthly premiums, which is the monthly cost of being enrolled in one of our plans that we offer. For individual plans, in addition to the premiums, it will cover the cost of copays and deductibles. The monthly medical allowance amount is set annually by the Board of Retirement. If there are costs that exceed what the monthly medical allowance amount is, then you, the retiree, are responsible for paying those costs. And the monthly medical allowance does not subsidize anyone else besides our ACERA retirees. So no beneficiaries, survivors, spouses, former spouses, dependents, anyone else, just you. Excuse me. So here are the 2021 monthly medical allowance amounts. The full monthly medical allowance amount, which you will be eligible for if you have at least 20 years of ACERA service credit in retirement, is $578.65. The 3/4 amount, which you are eligible for if you have at least 15 years of ACERA service credit, is $433.99. The half amount, if you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, is $289.33. So if you are eligible for the monthly medical allowance at one of these levels, go ahead and kind of think about that dollar amount, because now I'm going to show you what the plans are and what the costs are, and so you can kind of think about how much of the costs these monthly medical allowance amounts will cover. Okay, here are our plans. We have open enrollment each November for these medical plans. So that is your annual opportunity to add coverage, subtract coverage, change plans. You also can do it with qualifying events, and retirement is a qualifying event. So at retirement, you can get right into one of these plans with no gap in coverage. And we'll help you through that. We have a healthcare unit that helps people get right into one of these plans. So there's some various plan options here, and they're in two categories. There are non-Medicare eligible options, and these are what you will be looking at if you are not Medicare eligible at the time of retirement. And Medicare eligibility generally starts at age 65. So if you retire under age 65, then you would be looking at these options. If you retire at 65 or older, then you're going to look at these Medicare options. These are plans that work with Medicare and provide an additional level of coverage above what Medicare provides. And you can see that there's three companies here, three healthcare insurance providers: Kaiser Permanente, United Healthcare, and then Via Benefits isn't really a provider, but they're an exchange that helps match you up with a healthcare insurance provider. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So what I'll show you first are the non-Medicare eligible group plans. Then I'll show you the Medicare eligible Kaiser plan, which is also a group plan. And then it's easiest if I talk about the non-Medicare and Medicare individual plans through Via Benefits all at the same time. So that's kind of the order that I'll do this in. I'm going to show you just a few details. I'm going to show you the dollar amounts, the costs, and a little bit about like what the copays are. But the full plan details are always in our enrollment guide, and you can find that if you go to acera.org/guide. We publish this every single year, and in retirement, you will get this in the mail every single year in October. Okay, let me take that question in just a minute. So here are the non-Medicare group plans. There's three: Kaiser Permanente HMO, United Healthcare Signature Value HMO, and United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO. These group plans are all for people who live in the California service areas, which is the Bay Area, Sacramento area, Fresno area, Southern California, and for Kaiser, I think they added Santa Cruz. If you live outside one of those service areas and you're not Medicare eligible, then you can't choose one of these group plans. You're gonna be able to choose an individual plan through Via Benefits, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So for the Kaiser Permanente HMO, the self premium is $810.72. For the United Healthcare Signature Value HMO, it's $1,150.60. For the United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO, it's $759.16. So you can see that even with the 20-year monthly medical allowance, which was $578.65, it doesn't pay for the full monthly premium of being enrolled in these non-Medicare eligible plans. So you end up paying the difference. One thing I'll point out is that the United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO is our cheapest plan for the first time this year. Our cheapest plan was always the Kaiser Permanente HMO in the past, but for this year, 2021, is the first time that this plan is the cheapest. And to enroll in this plan, the Signature Value Advantage HMO, what you do is you stick to this high-performing network, and it's like a narrower network of providers, but it's a high-performing network. And as long as you choose from those providers, then you can be in this much cheaper plan. It's 34% cheaper than the regular United Healthcare plan and 6% cheaper than the Kaiser plan. And you end up saving about $50 from the Kaiser plan per month. Okay, and then if you are eligible for the monthly medical allowance, the way that you receive the monthly medical allowance and the way that you pay your monthly premium works like this. It comes in and out of your Acera check. So this is an illustration. It's a very crude, rudimentary illustration of your Acera check stub. This is your gross retirement allowance here. Okay, then if you're familiar with check stubs, there's usually a deductions column and an additions column. What we'll do is deduct, if you enroll in one of our group healthcare plans, group medical plans, we will deduct the premium from your check and we'll send it over to that carrier as a convenience to you. So we pay your premium for you and deduct it from your check. In the additions column, you will see the monthly medical allowance amount that you are eligible for go back into your check. So the premium goes out of your check, the monthly medical allowance goes back into your check, and you see what your allowance is then your net amount after deductions and additions and tax withholding, because that's going to be a deduction. One thing I will say about all of these non-guaranteed benefits is this is not taxable income. So we have it worked out with the IRS where we can offer these healthcare subsidies as non-taxable income. So you don't have to pay income taxes on it. So that was the non-Medicare group plan costs. Now I will show you the Medicare group plan costs. If you are eligible for Medicare at age 65 or older, what you do is you enroll in Medicare. So you enroll in Medicare Parts A and B. And then if you want to, you can just take the plain old Medicare and it gives you a certain level of coverage. But if you want to, you can enroll also in this Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan, and it gives you a higher level of coverage than Medicare alone gives you. The 2021 self-premium for this plan is $382.21. Okay, so you can see that the premium is significantly lower than the non-Medicare plans, and that's because Medicare is providing most of the coverage for this. And so you end up paying just an additional small amount to be enrolled in this extra level of coverage. And in fact, if you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit, so you're eligible for the 15-year monthly medical allowance amount, you end up paying zero because it covers your entire self-premium. So it kind of doesn't make sense to not enroll in one of these plans and just take Medicare if you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit. And even if you have 10 years of Acera service credit and you're paying at the $289 level, it's still only costing you about less than $100 per month to be enrolled in this plan. So it's a pretty good deal. One thing that you may notice about this is that I've included this additional row for the Kaiser plans showing the 20-year monthly medical allowance amount. And you may also notice that you didn't see this amount on the monthly medical allowance chart. And that is because the monthly medical allowance rules state that it only pays up to the amount of the self-premium. It doesn't pay over that, so you do not get to keep the change. That's why if you enroll in this plan, your premium is $382.21, then your monthly medical allowance also becomes $382.21. And so your out-of-pocket cost is zero for the premiums. And so this becomes your monthly medical allowance amount. And what I've done on this table for this Kaiser Medicare plan is just to put in the monthly medical allowance amounts and subtract out the monthly medical allowance from the premiums so that you can see your out-of-pocket cost. For all of the plans that we do this in that enrollment guide, we do the subtraction for you so you can see what your out-of-pocket cost is. So if you're interested in that, you should check out that guide. The other thing that this shows is different scenarios for you enrolling different members of your family. If you're enrolling a spouse, so you're enrolling self plus one, and you both have Medicare, you're looking at this column. If only one of you is eligible for Medicare, you're going to look at one of these two columns, and it depends on whether you're the one who's eligible for Medicare or whether your spouse is the one who's eligible for Medicare. And the same thing goes with self plus one plus family. So those are the group plans. And before I move on to the individual plans, let me answer this question. So you have a question. The question is, you're not Medicare eligible, so what percentage do you have to pay? I'm not sure what the percentage is, but it's going to depend on what level of monthly medical allowance you're eligible for and which plan you choose. So maybe you could just state in the Q&A which monthly medical allowance amount you're going to be eligible for and which plan you're thinking about. And I can give you more information about that. Or maybe, well, if you maybe you walked away for a minute, but what I will say is kind of rather than thinking about it in percentages, you might want to think about it in dollar amounts. So you just kind of think about what amount of monthly medical allowance you'll be eligible for, and then you just subtract that from the amount of the self premium of the plan that you're going to choose, and that kind of leaves you with an idea of what dollar amount you're going to be paying per month to be enrolled in the plan. And let me know if you have any follow-ups to that. Okay, so those are the group plans. Now let me talk about your individual plan options through Via Benefits. First of all, who can enroll in an individual plan through Via Benefits? Well, if you're not Medicare eligible, you have to live outside the group plan service areas. So if you're inside the group plan service areas, you can only choose from the group plans. If you're outside the group plan service areas, you can only choose from the individual plans. That's the way it works if you're not Medicare eligible. If you are Medicare eligible, it doesn't work that way. You can live anywhere in the US and you can pick a plan. All you have to do is enroll in Medicare, and then you can pick one of the plans. And again, the group plan service areas are the Bay Area, Fresno, Sacramento, Southern California, and for Kaiser Permanente, Santa Cruz. And so if you live outside those areas, like if you move up to Redding, that's outside the service area, or if you move to Nevada, that's outside the service area, or any other state. And so that would make it so that you can choose an individual plan. And then again, for Medicare eligible people, you can live anywhere in the US, even if it's in California, or one of the group plan service areas. Now, Via Benefits is a private health insurance exchange that we contract with. So what they do is they contract with a whole bunch of insurance carriers. There's over 80, and there's like 1,000 different plans that they contract with these 80 insurance carriers. And so they offer this one marketplace to match you with an individual healthcare medical care plan, medical insurance plan. What you do is you call them up, or you can do it online. But if you call them up, you'll speak with a certified, salaried, non-commissioned benefit advisor. And I say all that to say that they don't care. They're not gonna. They have no skin in the game regarding which carrier they match you with. They don't care which one. They don't get commission based on that. They just get a salary. So what they're going to do is they're going to narrow down the plans to what's right for you. What you do on the call is you show up with where you're going to live, how much you want to spend, what level of coverage you're looking for. You can even get down to as much detail as what providers you want to see or what prescription drugs you need. And they help narrow down all of their plans to just a few plans that are perhaps right for you. And then you choose among those few plans. And again, the monthly medical allowance for these individual plans can pay not only for the monthly premiums, but for deductibles if you should choose a deductible plan, and also copays. Okay. Now, if you are eligible for the monthly medical allowance, it works differently. We provide that to you differently than we do if you choose one of our group plans. We cannot put it into your retirement check, and we can't take your monthly premium out of your check to pay your insurance company. There's just too many, it's just too complicated to do all that. So instead, what we have worked it out with Via Benefits to do, and this is a service that they provide, is they will open a health reimbursement account for you over at Via Benefits. Okay, so here is a crude illustration of how your money moves around regarding you incurring costs for your medical plans and getting reimbursed. So here's a Sarah, and here's your monthly medical allowance that you're eligible for. We are going to send that monthly medical allowance over to Via Benefits, and they're going to put it in your health reimbursement account. There it's going to wait for you. Okay, now you're over here. You enroll in an individual plan through Via Benefits, through one insurance company. There's going to be a monthly premium that it's going to cost you to be enrolled in that coverage. So you're going to pay that directly to the insurance company. Additionally, once you're enrolled in the healthcare, you're probably going to go visit the doctor. And whenever you go visit the doctor, you're going to pay a copay. And so you're going to be paying the doctor that copay. Now you're out some money here, but you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance in this example. And so in order to get your monthly medical allowance, you submit reimbursement claims back to Via Benefits, and they will pay you your monthly medical allowance. They will reimburse you for your costs out of your health reimbursement account. You can set up a lot of the stuff to happen automatically, and they will help you do that. You can set up recurring payments to your insurance company out of your bank account. You can set up auto reimbursements from your health reimbursement account back to your bank account to make it easy. And then you would just be responsible for submitting reimbursement claims for doctor's visits to Via Benefits. And they have an app, a mobile phone app that makes that easy. And you can also do it on your computer online. So they try to make it easy for you. Okay, so the question is, maybe you can restate your question because I'm not quite understanding what the question is. Okay, so let's see. The question is, your copay is $232. So, okay, so what I'm guessing is that you have subtracted your monthly medical allowance amount that you're eligible for out of the self-premium, and your question is whether it's biweekly or monthly. It's monthly. So you pay monthly, it's a monthly premium, and then the monthly medical allowance is paid to you on a monthly basis. Also, you receive your retirement check on a monthly basis. It's the last business day of each month. So everything is monthly here. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't. You are quite welcome. Okay, we did all this. One more thing I'll say about Via Benefits. If you are Medicare eligible and you're going to select an individual plan through Via Benefits, there is a different set of monthly medical allowance amounts that you will be looking at. And that is because the Medicare plans that Via Benefits offers are so cheap that the Board of Retirement decided that they would offer a slightly smaller set of monthly medical allowance amounts just for those plans. But what we find we measure this every year, is that in the 20 or more year category, 90% of the people don't run out of the money. So for 90% of retirees, the monthly medical allowance amount covers their full costs, including premiums, deductibles, and copays. So that is medical coverage and medical subsidies. Let me talk about the dental plans. There are two dental plans that we offer you the ability to enroll in: Delta Dental PPO and Delta Care USA. They're both through Delta Dental. Now, there are two categories here of enrollment. There's mandatory enrollment and voluntary, and it's based on how much service credit you have when you retire. If you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, or you have a service-connected disability retirement, you must enroll in one of these plans, but it doesn't cost you anything. That's because the self-premium for the plans and the subsidy that ACERA offers are the same. So for example, if you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit when you retire and you enroll, you choose the Delta Dental PPO. In your ACERA retirement check, you will see $44.15 come out in the deductions column for your Delta Dental premium. We'll send that over to Delta Dental for you. And then in the additions column, you will see $44.15 go back in. That's your dental subsidy. So it ends up costing you zero. And again, like I said, it's not a taxable amount. It's non-taxable income. And the same thing for Delta Care USA, except the premium and the subsidy are $22.18. Now, if you're looking at enrolling a spouse, for example, you can enroll them and your premium would be $85.96, and then your subsidy amount would be $44.15. So you'd see $85.96 come out of your check and $44.15 go back into your check within the same check. If you have less than 10 years of ACERA service credit when you retire, you can still enroll in the dental plan if you want, but there's no subsidy offered. So you're going to pay your whole way, and there's a different set of premium amounts here. For the vision plans, they are very similar to the dental plans. Again, if you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, or you have a service-connected disability retirement, you must enroll in at least the VSP standard plan, but it doesn't cost you anything. The self-premium and the subsidy are the same, $3.97. In this case, for the vision, if you want to, you can buy up into the VSP premium plan, and it's going to cost you an additional amount. So your self-premium would be $14.26, but the subsidy is going to stay at $3.97, so you end up paying the difference. And then again, you can voluntarily enroll with less than 10 years of ACERA service credit, and you just have to pay the full amount of the premium with no subsidy. Our next non-guaranteed benefit is the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. What this does is it offsets the cost of you being enrolled in Medicare Part B. So once you're Medicare eligible, what you do is you have to go enroll in Medicare Parts A and B, at least, to receive Medicare. If you have been paying into the Medicare system for at least, I think, 10 years, I think it's 40 quarters, then Medicare Part A is going to be free for you. If you are a safety member or other person who does not pay into the Medicare system, then you can still enroll in Medicare. You just have to pay for Medicare Part A. Okay. So everyone can enroll in Medicare who's 65 and older. It's just like if you don't have enough credits from paying into it, then you just have to pay for Medicare Part A. Medicare Part A is hospitalization. Medicare Part B is doctor's visits. And then depending on your plan, you may have to choose a separate Medicare Part D plan, which is prescription drugs. But for some plans, it's all rolled up into one. So you enroll in Medicare. Now for everyone, Medicare Part B comes with a cost. For 2021, the lowest cost that any of our members will pay to the federal government for being enrolled in Medicare Part B is $148.15. This is something that you pay directly to the federal government for being enrolled in Medicare Part B. If you're already collecting Social Security, they will take it out of your Social Security check for you. Okay, now because you're incurring a cost for Medicare Part B, The Board of Retirement has decided that a good benefit to offer would be to help you offset the cost of being enrolled in Medicare Part B. And so they have chosen to set this Medicare Part B reimbursement benefit at the lowest standard level for what the lowest amount that any one of our members pays for being enrolled in Medicare Part B, which is $148.50. So you pay $148.50 to the federal government, and then if you enroll in the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan, you'll see $148.50 show up in your retirement check. As long as, to qualify, you need to have, again, at least 10 years of a service credit or a service-connected disability retirement. You also need to maintain your enrollment in Medicare Part B, and you need to submit the enrollment form for this one time. And the best time to do it is the time when you enroll in Medicare. And we will help you enroll in Medicare. In fact, if you turn 65 in retirement, a few months before, we'll send you an invitation to attend one of our Medicare transition seminars to help you transition from regular healthcare into Medicare. If you're already 65 and you haven't retired yet, in retirement, you're not going to get that invitation, but you can sign up for the Medicare transition seminar on our webpage in the same menu that you signed up for this seminar. And we will help remind you to get enrolled in Medicare Part B, the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. So that is that benefit. The final non-guaranteed benefit I'll talk about is the supplemental cost of living adjustment. And what this does is it prevents you from losing your buying power, too much buying power to inflation in retirement. If the buying power that you enjoyed at the time of retirement ever dips below 85% of what it originally was in retirement, and that would be due to increasing compounding inflation over the years, the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and keeps you at 85% of your original buying power. So you can never lose more than 15% of your original buying power to inflation in retirement. And that's how that works. So those are the non-guaranteed benefits. The last two topics we'll talk about are super short. The first one is understanding some life events. The reason I don't go into detail about these is because they're not going to apply to everyone. So if you want to read more about them, I've provided some links here. The first one is deferring retirement. If you're going to quit work or stop or terminate your employment before you retire and spend time and defer your retirement to a later date, not go straight into retirement, there are some things you should know about that. And so we have a page for you that gives you information on that. There are some death benefits. The second bullet point is there are some death benefits that your beneficiaries will receive should you die before retirement. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it just gives you some peace of mind to know that there are death benefits that your beneficiaries will receive. And it's a good idea to keep your beneficiary designations updated and make sure that we pay the right person. So log into your account on our website, see who you've designated as your beneficiaries, and make sure that those are current. Okay, the next bullet point, divorce and domestic partnership dissolution. Those can have an effect on your SARA retirement benefit. Your benefits that you're earning are considered community property in the state of California, and those are on the table for division during a divorce or domestic partnership dissolution. So there's some information for you about that on our divorce page. The next bullet point is about disability retirement. Everything I've been talking about regarding retirement, mostly I've been talking about like planning for retirement and like getting benefit estimates and all that. That's regarding the regular retirement, what we sometimes call service retirement. If you become permanently disabled and you cannot perform your job duties anymore and you need to retire early, there is the option of applying for disability retirement. And we have a page on our website that will help you through that. We have a disability unit that will help you through that. And so go check out that information on our website. The next bullet point is if you are planning on working after retirement. If you're going to work after retirement and you're not going to work for one of ACERA 6 participating employers, so you're going to go work somewhere else, that's perfectly fine. We're going to consider you a ACERA retiree, and you're going to get your retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life, regardless of where you go work. Now, the caveat to that is if you work, if in retirement, you're going to go back to work for your employer, your ACERA participating employer, or one of ACERA's other participating employers, there are some restrictions on that, and there are duration limits on that you should be familiar with prior to making that plan. So go ahead and check out that information on our website. And finally, a lot of people move after retirement. And so if you do that, we ask that you let us know that you have moved. And there's instructions on our website on how to submit an address change form. What that does is it helps us send you official communications. Additionally, we're going to continue sending you our annual report. And most importantly, we're going to send you our open enrollment packet every year in October. And so if you don't change your address with us, we can't know where to send that to. Last item on the checklist, we ask that you go ahead and sign up for ACERA email news if you like. You don't have to. We post news out on our website whenever it happens. But the easiest way to keep track of what's going on with ACERA is to subscribe to our email news. You just go to acera.org/subscribe. And if you just pick the option for news for retirees, we hardly send out any news. It's maybe like a couple of times a year, if that. Okay, so you're not going to get inundated with stuff. We only send the important stuff. Okay, now you can choose the additional option of we do have a wellness page on our website, and whenever we post wellness articles, we'll send that out to our wellness list. So you might get a few more if you sign up for that, but that's totally optional. If you have any questions at any time, we have a call center, and their whole job is to answer your questions. If you think of a question later after the presentation that you didn't get a chance to ask, just go ahead and call our call center. Currently, we are taking calls 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday is when we're open. So just go ahead and give us a call. So with that, on behalf of the ACERA Board of Retirement and the ACERA staff, I wish you a beautiful retirement. You've earned it. And I wish you a beautiful day and a beautiful life. Thank you for spending this time with me.